Welcome to Chronic Health Collective, where we empower you to transform yourself. We've gathered the best coaches and experts to bring you insights that will elevate your physical, mental, and spiritual well being. Whether you're looking to boost your energy, heal relationships, or just to live a more productive, balanced life, we are here to guide you every step of the way. I'm Minoa, and tonight we are joined by my dear friend Jackie Mott. So, Jackie is a number one international best-selling author, powerhouse speaker, and master life coach whose true brilliance lies in her ability to talk about difficult subjects using her own unique brand of wisdom, vulnerability, and humor. And she lives from her belief that life doesn't have to be so damn serious. Welcome, Jackie.
Hello, Minna. How are you?
I'm doing great. I love it. The life doesn't have to be so serious.
I know, right? It is a game changer when you actually function from that space.
Oh yeah, I believe that. I don't take life that seriously either.
Gotta laugh, man. We gotta laugh.
So Jackie, we're now kind of into spring. I know it doesn't feel like it, but we're supposed to be in spring. We're in March, so spring is like a season of renewal, right? It's supposed to be nice and beautiful and flowering. So what do you feel? What feelings do you get when it's springtime?
Oh, spring is my favorite season, Minna. It is my favorite time because it's all about the like the regeneration, rebirth, all of that, the new growth, the color coming back into the world, all of that stuff. I just love it. I cannot express that enough. I can't wait to get back outside. We're still under a fair bit of snow here where I live, so I can't wait to get back outside. I've got to swing out there. I'm waiting for my coffee, morning coffee on the swing on the patio.
So, in
Yeah.
terms of since you're a life coach, right? In terms of seasonal changes, where do you see personal develop as a cycle of like birth and rebirth?
I'm sorry, say that again, love?
In terms of like changing seasons,
Yeah.
in what ways do you see personal development as a
Oh.
cycle of like, birth and rebirth?
So I really identify with the phoenix, as you can see from my little logo up in the corner there. I love the energy of the phoenix, and I've really investigated sort of that cycle. And of course, that cycle is simply that we burn to ash and then we come back to life, right? So my personal viewpoint and professional viewpoint is that we all go through different seasons in our lives, right? We all go through different phases or different times in our lives. Things change, and I'm in my 50s now, so I have a little bit of experience with this.
So
But we all, right, we all evolve and change. And I perceive this like rebirth as a thing that happens at most major phases as we go through our lives. Especially when we're going through a transformation or like a major transition. You could go through the loss of someone that you care about. You could go through a change in career. You could go through a physical move, or even, women our age, or my age, I should say, are, becoming empty nesters. There's all kinds of different changes, and some of them are really positive changes, but it's not always easy to navigate those things. So I think about spring as this time of rebirth. And I love the imagery. I love the idea of this thing. And I'm just going to plug the magazine because we have this Chronic Health Collective magazine that Andy and Minna put out every month. And it is absolutely amazing, the content that you're going to find in there. And the March magazine actually is all about this stuff. So we pulled from that for this episode the idea of struggle being part of this rebirth process, because I believe very strongly how we look at things will impact how we deal with them. So if we can look at going through a transition as a time of, yes, I know there's going to be challenge, yes, I know there's going to be struggle, yes, I know I know what to expect, then it can be easier to navigate than when we're in a transition and we start to feel overwhelmed or frightened or any number of different other things, depending on the circumstances, right? So rebirth.
Yeah, I don't know if you know that before we formed the Chronic Health Collective, Andy and I has a idea of calling our collaboration group Phoenix Collaboration, and
Oh,
that is precisely the reason. Like, we love the idea that
oh.
Phoenix just burned to ashes and came back much more beautiful and powerful. That's exactly what we have in mind. See, like minds think alike.
It is a powerful image, right? It is a powerful, powerful image, and it also, I I just personally perceive it as hopeful more than anything else hopeful because no matter what you're going through, you've already navigated so much in your life. No matter what you're going through, you are very likely going to make it to the other side of this thing. I went through a divorce after being with the same person for 27 years. We were married for 18. We lived under the same roof for, I don't know, 25 or something like that. Um, and that was a really massive change, huge, massive change. On the other side of that, I've gotten to a place where I can be grateful for what we shared and the life that we had together. And also now understand that it's better for me to not have remained in that relationship. Probably better for him too, but you get to this place where you can look back, but when you're in the middle of it, sometimes it doesn't feel that good, right? It really can feel kind of rotten. So having that perspective of this rebirth, this idea of, when something is being ready or becoming ready to be born, it's a messy process, and it's often painful. And one of the things that I really love to think about or talk about, especially when I'm feeling those kinds of things or when I'm talking with someone who's going through something difficult, is the butterfly, right?
Mhm.
Butterfly is sort of my spirit animal. Butterfly, dragonfly, those two are seriously, they're sort of my spirit animal. So, butterfly goes through this massive transformation inside the cocoon, right? And inside the cocoon, now I don't know the science, I'm not a science gal, but my understanding is that they basically like liquefy inside the cocoon and then are, reformed into the shape of the butterfly. And the really interesting thing, and this I know to be true, when they are emerging from the cocoon, they make a hole and then they have to sort of push themselves out. And if they're in the middle of that process and someone tries to help them, they will not survive because that struggle to push themselves out of that actually forces the liquid from the body out into the wings, and the wings only can develop when that happens. So when we perceive struggle as part of a transformation or part of a birth process or a rebirth or a growth or any number of things, and that's part of the reason why I love spring so much, that regeneration energy and that, like, okay, things might not be easy, but we're going to get there and it's going to be beautiful.
I love that analogy. I've heard that before, and I heard it in a storytelling kind of way where like
Mm,
a kid is supposed to help the butterfly, by opening it up and helping it. But when you do that, the butterfly doesn't turn into a butterfly. It actually not
mhm,
helping. So
mhm.
it's almost like parents that coddle their kids, they turn out to be nothing.
That is an interesting analogy.
So do you feel like there's like a perfect time for growth, to start something new, or it just comes when it comes?
I kind of feel like every time is the perfect time.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, I feel like we evolve, like we are constantly evolving throughout our lives. So, um, it can be tricky when we try to take on too much growth at one time. when we try to focus in too many areas at one time. So it's very helpful often to have, a coach or a mentor or somebody that can offer guidance or even just like some accountability or some guidelines, because we can all go off track a little bit here and there. So it can be really helpful to have somebody to help us with that. But I personally, I think it can be addictive. This whole idea of growth and change and becoming and evolving, and I might be a little bit of an addict. I don't know.
Well, it's a beautiful process, right? Coming out of a struggle and becoming something that's beautiful and powerful. I think that is beautiful. So, Jackie, let's talk about the acorn. I know you have an analogy of the acorn in your magazine. I
Yeah.
really love it. Let's talk about that.
Okay. So the acorn is something that is, and it's true for, pretty much any plant, but the acorn is a really great example because it's in such a hard shell, right? And for those of you who don't know this, the acorn is actually contains the seed for the oak tree. So if you think about this massive thing that a mighty oak, right? People call it the mighty oak tree, and they do
Hmm.
for a reason, because it's massive and it's strong and its roots are deep, and it grows into this just like an absolutely awesome creation in the end. But it starts out as this little wee seed inside the acorn shell. And so what happens with these things, and I don't know about you, but I know people that actually almost collect them. Like they find them in the forest and they put them on a shelf, or they put them in a drawer, or they put them someplace or
Like
whatever.
squirrels.
Well, squirrels do it too. Squirrels actually are really important for this process, I think. But they collect them, they find them, and I knew a lady once that actually gave them out as part of her presentation because she wanted to emphasize this power. So when the acorn finds the perfect circumstance, so it's got to be dirt, it's probably in, a place where there's sunlight and water. And again, I'm not a science person, but I imagine that all of these things are necessary. So when that acorn finds that perfect spot, then eventually it will crack open. So it self-destructs, right? The shell outside has to self-destruct in order for that seed to germinate, in order for that seed to move on to its job. So the acorn's already done its job. It self-destructs, it's no more. And then the seed can germinate and become the mighty oak. So again, it's one of those things that it's like it's dramatic. It's destruction and birth and, all at the same time. When we perceive these phases or these transformation things that we go through from this understanding of nature, and understanding that in order for birth to take place, this miraculous process to take place, we have to go through the messy stuff first.
So let's go back a little bit.
Yeah.
If you are an acorn and you keep looking for the perfect soil and the perfect sun, and you never manage to let go, do you
Mm.
have any tips on how they would just let go?
Well, so this is one of the things that a lot of us struggle with. A lot of us, especially, I'm going to say, we don't really hear type A anymore, but those of us who are a little bit type
I
A,
still hear it once in a while,
yeah,
yes.
yeah, we like to have things situated before we make a move, right? But now's the right time. If you're feeling the pull, if you're feeling the call to do something, don't worry about finding the right soil or the right water, because we're not seeds, right? We don't need the soil and the water. We just need to move. So really letting go of that idea of perfection, because there is no such thing as perfection. That is a complete illusion. There is no such thing. we seem to have, as a culture, in many ways, we seem to have separated ourselves from the natural world. And when you look in nature, I mean, there is nothing perfect in nature. But I don't stand in a forest and look at a tree that's been blown and has, grown crooked because of the winds that have blown or because of the soil conditions or whatever. I don't look at that tree and judge that tree. Right? I don't look at anything. I don't look at the flower and say, "Oh, that's an ugly flower." I don't say, "Oh, look at that snowflake. Oh, there's something wrong with that snowflake or that bird." Or we don't. We have an allowance for it in nature that we don't allow ourselves, and that I
Yeah, we
think is
tend
the
to
key.
be yeah, we tend to be a lot more harsh on ourselves.
Mm.
So in your experience, is there something a person can do to not be so harsh on themselves?
Oh yeah, there's so many things, so many things. I mean, start to appreciate who you are. Look at who you are and how you show up. Think about the impact that you make for the people that care about you, for the world in general, for the work that you do, like whatever. We forget how important, and again, going back to nature, there's our ecosystems, right? And all of the pieces are necessary for the ecosystem. We are part of an ecosystem. And if we weren't here, then something wouldn't be working properly. But we don't see ourselves with that importance, right? We don't understand the importance of our presence on the planet. So it's really important for us to get an understanding of who we are and the value that we bring to this world. That's probably the
That's a
first
great
thing.
point. Yeah, I love that. Jackie, just hold that thought. We're going to come back after the break and we'll continue with our conversation.
A life empowered is closer than you think. We're all looking for a better way. Reimagine what's next with a new sense of exuberance. Why not power on like you mean it? Or power off blissfully? A better sleep is a better awake. You've never moved like this before. With the energy nature intended. Imagine reprogramming the way you look at the speed of science. At longevity. At exhilaration. It's next level rejuvenation. Take control of your well-being from the inside out and outside in. The light within is ready to ignite. Be the light. LifeWave.
What we believe to be true will be true for us, even if it's based on completely incorrect information. And we create our circumstances to support the belief systems that we carry. That might sound like bad news, like you're somehow at fault or to blame for the things about your life that aren't working. But let me share with you why that's not true. I'm Jackie Mott. I've always been fascinated by what makes people tick, and I've been working with people for well over a decade. What I can tell you is that those two statements have proven themselves to be true over and over again. The really great news is that we can change it. If you created your circumstances, you must also have the ability to create something different. You can overcome negative conditioning, self-image, limiting beliefs, and instead create healthy relationships, joy, and fulfillment, and that is my specialty. You can find me at jackiemott.com or on Facebook or YouTube, and if you're ready to start living with confidence, joy, healthy relationships, and excitement about your life and future, send me a message or an email and let's talk about it.
Welcome back to Chronic Health Collective. Today we have Jackie Mott with us. Hey, Jackie.
Hey.
So, Jackie, before the break, we were talking about cocoon and butterflies. But you know, in today's culture, we're all wanting comfort and all the conveniences, and we try to avoid struggle at all costs, right?
Mm.
How do you help people reframe the struggle as something that is good for them?
Well, it depends on what's going on, right? Like I always, I think that one of my biggest advices that I like to give people is eyes front. So focus on the future. Going through that divorce, going through that, shift in my life and my home and like everything, my finances, everything were affected by that, business, everything. So
Sure.
going through that change, there were times when it was really tough because there was a part of me that, kind of looked back and went, oh, and thought about what I'd lost, for example, right? Like what I missed or what I didn't have any longer as a result of that life change. And that, I mean, that's a typical thing no matter what you're facing, right? Even if you think about a job change or a move to a different city or many, many other things, becoming a parent, like so many things, and it will affect every part of your life. So if you are focused on what you had before, then that can become like you can get kind of stuck in the sad, in the grief, in the whatever. You can get kind of stuck in that place. But when we focus forward, so eyes front, right? Then we're looking toward the future that we want to create. And by the way, that can change. Like that can be a bit of a moving target, and there's nothing wrong with that, especially in the middle or in the beginning of a change when you don't know the landscape that you're going into because it's new, right? So eyes front is the big one. Focus on the things that you now want to create for yourself as opposed to the stuff that's behind you, because it's one of those things where we can't do anything about the things that have happened, right? We can't change the things that have happened. We make our peace, and then hopefully we move on with integrity and um, with some wisdom and some joy and all of that kind of stuff. But it's that thing of rear view mirror. And it's funny because I've seen so many things, but I had a vision a million years ago. Like it would literally about 25 years ago, I think. My family and I had moved to a new city, and I woke up one morning and the vision that I had was we were living in a hotel, by the way, because we hadn't gotten ourselves settled yet. And the vision that I had was you can't, if you are always looking in the rearview mirror, how can you see where you're going? Right? As long as I'm focused on what's behind me, I can't focus on what's in front of me. We have so much more control over what we create for ourselves than we realize. So when we're functioning in that autopilot way, and especially when we're looking behind us, then it's really easy to get stuck and beyond stuck, almost mired in that space that's very uncomfortable. So who was it? Was it Winston Churchill? If you're going through hell, keep going. Or when you're going through hell, keep going, right? You can't stop, because when you stop, then you get stuck.
On the other hand, I feel like I'm the type that when I'm going through a struggle, I would force it to happen. It's like if I'm stuck in a cocoon, I would force the cocoon to open just because I need to get out of it.
Okay.
Where it could actually be unfolding unnaturally. Is there any way to find a balance between what is supposed to come naturally than me being like the impatient type?
Well, I know that world very well. I don't tend to be the most patient person on the planet either. Um, I think the thing when we try to force things, so it's that idea of flow, right? Because we're not always ready, and that's the other part when we are, especially when we're really uncomfortable. I'm going to say for myself anyway. I think this is true for a lot of people, but when we're really uncomfortable, when we're really hurting, when we're really sad, we want to like just want to put the period and move on, right? I want to get past this
Mhm.
right now. And but the problem when we try to force it is that it's like think about that incubation period, right? Let's go back to the acorn. Let's go back to birth. Let's go back to that idea. There's a natural incubation period that needs to happen, right? So when we try to force that cocoon open before the incubation is complete, then I don't know. I'm just picturing that like partially formed butterfly, and I don't know. It just seems messy. It just seems so like understanding that we are going through an incubation, that we are going through, and like winter, right? We're in winter right now. And the winter is the time when, the snow falls. Well, here, the snow falls, and that becomes the water that feeds those plants, that feeds those acorns, that feeds the grass, that feeds the all of that kind of stuff, right? So we go through this period of hibernation, incubation, and that might be, if you look at the phoenix, that might be that ash phase, right? We can rise when we are ready to rise. So sometimes if we try to force it to happen before we're ready, it can it can make things a lot harder. Let's just say it that way. It can make things a lot harder. Or you can be like me, who had this brilliant idea to start coaching and speaking and all of this stuff. By the way, my background is in accounting and I'm still doing that. But I had this brilliant idea that I was going to, in the midst of this crazy divorce after 27 years, I was just going to wave a magic wand and I was going to become this coach and this speaker. And I was going to, and I don't regret it for a second, not for a second. But at the same time, there has been so much rebranding in my business because I didn't have a fully formed idea yet. Right. So, I mean, and there you go. That can be one of the consequences. You just have to kind of go with it. But sometimes making the move is what you need to do to pull yourselves out of the muck. Right? If you're stuck, then sometimes it takes an action to get you out of that place. Does that make sense, or am I talking in circles?
No, it does. I think it does make sense. In my head, like an opposite of me, there are people that just somehow I feel like they're unnecessarily suffering.
Oh, yeah,
Is
yeah.
there a way to, is there a way to tell whether you're doing a productive struggle versus something that's not unnecessary, but you're suffering over it?
Well, so I think probably the easiest way to identify when we're getting stuck in the suffering place is probably like victim thoughts, victim ideas, feeling like helpless, feeling disempowered, that kind of stuff. A lot of us can get really attached to, and believe me, I have no judgment for anybody because I have had some of these same patterns, which is part of how I learned all of these lessons that I've learned, right? Is by breaking my own patterns and breaking my own limitations and my own limiting beliefs. But I used to suffer and struggle with some of this stuff. And the story, right? The story was so important. The story of, it's not my fault. I didn't do anything wrong. The story of all of this, right? And man, I got good at storytelling. Many of us are really good. And I could craft a story that would, oh my God, you would be just like, oh, Jackie. I was good at that. But when you are doing that, then you are actually disempowering yourself. You are actually stepping out of the power position in your life, right? When we adopt that victim mindset, that thing where it's fault and blame and all of that, you are wasting your energy and you are stopping yourself from achieving the things that you could achieve. It's that, again, eyes front, focusing my energy as much as possible on the next step or the next task or the next phase that I need to go through. And I want to be also clear though, I don't ever advocate for people to push through their healing too fast or ignore the emotional stuff that's happening as they're going through these transitions, because that can be very traumatic and very harmful when we're not working through the feelings that we have about these things as we move forward. So again, this is also one of the great things with the Chronic Health Collective, because we have this collection of wisdom in different areas. You know, there's health, there's relationships, there's money, there's like business, there's like everything. There's everything that you could need. So this is one of the places where you can find so many different tools and so many different opportunities to learn new things from all of these experts that you and Andy have pulled together.
So, Jackie, I appreciate you sharing your journey with us. Do you have another, maybe someone that you work with, another example that you can, talk, show our viewers on the transformation and how it becomes maybe the best thing for them?
Well, I think it happens with pretty much everybody, right? Anybody who's willing to embrace, and again, no judgment, because some people, I just don't think it's necessarily their path. But you see people that change their body, they change their work, they change their entire lives. But they have to believe that it's possible in order to make those changes. And also the healing process can help the moving forward happen, right? If we don't do the healing along the way, then again, we're going to get stuck. But I have one, actually I have so many stories. I'm trying to pick one. One client of mine, actually, that she was wonderful. I don't do a lot of one-on-one work. I prefer actually doing like group. I enjoy group much more than I do generally, but I do enjoy one-on-one with the right people. So one of the clients that I had, she was just so smart and brilliant and wonderful, and in so many different ways. But she had gone through a divorce, and she was trying to figure out how to co-parent, let's say, right? And of course, because the dynamic had shifted, right? We're no longer parents, married, living together, blah, 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 blah. We're now, you're here, I'm here. And she was really struggling to work that part out for herself. And so we had many conversations on the other end of it. Using the tools that we had worked on together, she started to feel empowered to have these conversations with her former husband. And she started to feel like she could stand up. It wasn't like, that's not really the dynamic, but it was what she felt she needed to do. So she could stand up for herself, and she could have these difficult conversations. She learned the tools. And then, of course, as it progressed, as she practiced that more and more and more, it became easier and easier and easier. And over the time that we worked together, it was just so beautiful to watch, because she went from this person who was really struggling and still carrying some of that emotional stuff that we all have when we've gone through that kind of a circumstance, right? To being able to actually sit down with her ex-husband at one of the kids' events side by side, and enjoying the event together and talking to each other as they were enjoying. So they had gone from this, like, we can't even speak to each other, to now we're at the same event. And by the way, I've got a seat right next to me. Would you like to join me? And then to listen to her talk after a minute, it was so brilliant, because she's talking about how, that there's a bond that parents have. And if we honor that bond, even if we can't stay together, if we can learn how to honor that bond, there's who else on the planet could you possibly share that same pride for this child, or that same joy as you see them growing and evolving and becoming who they're meant to be. Who else better could you share that with, right? So that was probably one of the most beautiful. I've got stories coming out my ears, but that's probably one of the most beautiful ones that I've got to share.
It is beautiful, and I love it. And I got to tell you, it's not for everybody. My mother-in-law, she's not one of them. And let's put that on hold. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation.
Be attentive to what you tune into, attentive to love and curiosity, interest and enthusiasm. Passion is love. And when we talk about love, it's love of self, love of others, love of God, love of the process. Passion is that place, that sweet spot where we are living intentionally, we are living attentively.
Welcome back to Chronic Health Collective. Today we have Jackie Mott with us. Hey, Jackie.
Hey, I just love those commercials. I want to throw that in there because I'm watching. I know all these people, right? So I'm watching that and I'm going, oh, yeah, that's so good.
Yeah, we're all wonderful coaches. But Jackie, let's pick up from where we left off. Do you feel like the struggle gets easier over time?
Well, I think that it can. Really, I think it all boils down, honestly, Minna, to choice. Because we can choose to stay in, and I reference it sort of as the dark place with the sharp edges and the corners. Like that. We can choose to live there, and there are lots of people that do that, and I don't really understand it. I don't have judgment. People have their own journey, but I think, have you seen the movie Chocolat? The one with Johnny Depp, and I don't know who she is, but it's in France, and there's a chocolate shop, and if you haven't seen it, you know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. So I think about that, and there is this one character, and she's a lady who lost her husband in the war, and there's this other character. So she's in mourning, right? She's got the black dress, and it's sort of like she's one of those side characters. So if you watch the movie again, then you need to watch for this character. I don't know what her name is, but she's one of these side characters, and she's dressed in black, and she's in mourning, and so on and so on and so on. So this new lady enters town. She starts the chocolate shop, and then the man with the dog, an older man with the dog, he comes into the chocolate shop, and they start talking, and she says, well, how long ago did she lose her husband? And it was like decades ago. Decades ago, this woman lost her husband, and she's still in mourning, right?
Wow.
So, and this happens. Like, I'm certain that there are people in your life. I know there are people in my life. They just sort of unpack and move into that place, and God bless them. Whatever reason they have for being there, okay. But it's not my choice. Right? It's not my choice to live there. I have so many things to do, so many places to see, so many things to learn. I just learned how to do salsa dancing, and like, it is just, life is too damn short. It is too short. I don't want to waste it, but I also have compassion for other people. So it's that you need to make a choice. If your choice is to stay there, that's great. I'll catch you on the flip side. I'm going to be off on another adventure, right?
Well, like you said, everything in life is temporary. Is that right?
It's true. It's true. There's nothing permanent, right? The only things we can count on, what is that saying? The only things death and taxes. What is that saying? You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, the only certainty is
Yes.
something like that.
Yeah,
Death and
death
taxes.
and taxes. That's it. That's it. So everything else is movable and changeable. And, one of the things that I realized a number of years ago is that we have one relationship, right? And that relationship will last from birth until death. And that's with ourselves.
Mm.
Right? We have partners come and go, friends come and go, parents come and go, kids come and go, pets come and go. Everybody comes and goes, right? And so that we really need to focus on the relationship that we have with ourselves and honoring who we are, what we bring to the table, the value, all of that kind of stuff, and celebrating ourselves as much as possible. And I'll tell you what I've learned going through that divorce and everything like that is that when you do that, when you live from that place of loving and honoring yourself, the flavor of love that you give others is very different. It's warmer and it's fuller and I don't even know how to say it, but it just has a completely different flavor than when you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just so much more. So when we are functioning from that other way, and believe me, I lived that way for 40 years or more, right? So when we're functioning from that place, we don't have as much as we do when we're actually loving and appreciating.
So, is there a way for people to, when they're in the middle of a struggle, when they're in the middle of a hardship, is there a way to help them see their own strength so that they can build the confidence to come out of whatever it is that they're suffering from?
Well, the truth, the absolute truth is that you are already a huge success. Every one of us, every plant, every animal, everything that is still breathing and living on this planet is a huge success. And that's because we've already survived. We've already survived every difficult thing, right? And I can be kind of irreverent. I didn't put this in the magazine. I actually deleted it from the column. But here's the thing, right? There are two options. Either you're going to survive it or you're not. Like, that is the truth. You will either survive the hardship or you will not. And if you don't, it probably isn't going to matter for that long. So don't worry about it. Just do the best you can. You are already a huge success. Remember who you are. Focus on remembering who you are. Find support. I don't know if I probably would have made it through the divorce without my team or my tribe or whatever, but I don't know, because it got pretty tough sometimes, right? So find your people, your loved ones, your friends, your coaches, your whomever. If you need to go and get help from your doctor, go do it. But don't give up. You are already a huge success, and who knows what's waiting for you on the other side of this thing, right? We don't know the possibilities that are available to us. I never could have. I'm looking around at my office right now, and I'm thinking about some of the pictures that I have and some of the memories that I have over the last, that book, right? This book that I wrote, this one became a number one international bestseller. Right. And this happened years after my marriage broke down, years after I had no idea that was possible. I didn't know that that was going to come up. I had a show that I ran for almost 3 years that I had no idea that was going to happen. I met you folks. I had no idea that was going to happen. Trips that I've taken and courses and certifications and learning, and I've come to understand about myself that I love to learn. So I'm fascinated by having deep conversations with beautiful people like you where I can get different perspectives and stuff. So much is possible that we just don't realize. So when you're in the midst of the struggle, it's important to focus on those things. Like find yourself that solid ground. Find yourself some solid ground. Lean on your people and keep eyes front. Move forward, do the very best you can to be honoring of yourself as you go through whatever process. And call me. I'm here. I'm here. I like to help people with this stuff.
No, I think that's a good point. Perspective is important. I feel like a lot of times people don't recognize the resilience until it's in the hindsight, until it's over. Um, is there a way for them to help them see it earlier, like the way to zoom out so that they can actually see the strength while they're going through the hardship?
And I think I would recommend that you, like a really quick way to do that would be to think about, like pick a period of time, right? 10 years, 20 years, 5 years, whatever, and make a list of all of the challenges that have come up in that time frame. And I mean, like, if we look at the last 5 years, we had a global pandemic, right? Like, all of us went through a ringer with that. Many
Mhm.
marriages and relationships broke down in that time frame. Lots of financial stresses, right? Changes in family circumstances. So many different things have happened as a result just of that one thing that happened to everybody, right? So, um, make a list of the things that you have successfully survived, and also at the same time, so maybe take a piece of paper, and I'm just making this up as we go, by the way, but maybe take a piece of paper and make one column or whatever that is, okay, here are the things that I have survived in the last
Mhm.
5 or 10 years or whatever time frame you want to choose. And then here are the things that I did, right? So, like, and I mean, we just talked about that 30 seconds ago, right? I wrote a book,
Mhm.
I had a show, I've gone on trips, right? So make yourself lists to celebrate. And by the way, one of the really lovely things about New Year's, if it's something that would, feed your soul, I love doing this. I've got a mason jar. It's over there. If I'd known we were going to talk about this, I would have brought it over here. But I've got, you know what a mason jar is, right?
Mhm.
Good
Yep.
for canning, yeah. So I've got a mason jar on my desk, and I have pretty pieces of paper. So when I accomplish something, then I make a note, I date, and then I make a note of what it was that I accomplished. Do you see what I mean?
So it's like a accomplishment jar,
Yes. And then
opposed to a square jar.
the idea is, like, on New Year's Eve or somewhere in that space between Christmas and New Year's, when things are a little bit quiet and, everybody's kind of a little bit too full from the celebrating and everything, pull the jar out and dump it out and then go through it. And
That's a beautiful idea.
the really great thing about that, Minna, is we forget, right? We forget about everything that we have actually accomplished. And sometimes it's not a big thing. Sometimes it's a really big thing. So have that moment where you celebrate. And I mean, if you're going through a rough time, you could do that whenever you wanted to. You could dump it out whenever you wanted to. But I
Mhm.
think the fastest way would be to say, okay, in the last 5 years, one of my girlfriends and I, we did this, and I'm sure it was in the middle of the pandemic. And she was just like, okay, so your marriage ended. This happened, this happened, this happened, pandemic. I had a friend that lived with me and then passed away. She had
Mhm.
cancer when she moved in. So Marriage ended, friend with cancer. I got sick, requiring surgery. Then the pandemic hit, so the surgery was delayed for 3 years. Um, so I was sick for 3 years, right? So it was just like bing, 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 bing. There were so many, and she was like, "My God, like this is a lot of stuff to hit somebody in a short period of time, right?"
Yeah.
A lot of stuff to hit somebody in a short period of time. So we sometimes get into the like just keeping our heads above water, just moving forward. And we don't sometimes realize what we're actually accomplishing in the process. It can also be really helpful to talk to your friends or your family members if they're nice. If they're nice, right? You don't want to talk to the unsupportive.
That's the
Um,
key.
Yeah, you don't want to talk to the unsupportive ones, but the ones that really see you and appreciate you, they can be a really great resource. I have probably my closest friends, like they remind me all the time. They're like, "Look at what you've done," or and vice versa. This is part of our relationship dynamics, so that can be a great thing to do as well.
Yeah, I think you kind of answered the question I have in my head, which is how to rewrite your story and see it from a perspective of strength instead of seeing yourself as a failure, right? Is there other tips that you can give our viewers on how to rewrite their own story?
Yeah, so I don't believe in failure. I really don't. I believe in learning. I believe that there is. Okay, so let's look at, since we're talking about birth and all this stuff today, let's look at a baby. Okay, so let's look at a little baby, and they are getting into this place where they're starting to get ready to walk. Right? So let's think about that for a second. So they're pulling themselves up and they're falling down, and then they bang into this and they bang into that. There's a lot of tears, there's a lot of like up and down and boom and all of that kind of stuff that happens. And they keep trying and keep trying and keep trying. And here's the thing. Every time they stand up and fall back down, they learn a little bit about balance, or about, how to position my foot the right way, or how to, there's so many different muscles and things that are involved in this walking thing. And if you've never done it before, anything, you've never done it before, it takes time to learn. So here's the deal. If you, like, parent or not, if you're an adult person on this planet, you likely have a memory of, or a small child in your life who is going through this process. And what do? When they get up and we go, "Oh, yay, good job." Right? And they fall back down and you go, "Oh, boom." And then they get back up, right? Because we know that this is a process of learning and development and evolution that they will go through. They'll get it. They'll get it. And you will too. Do you see what I'm saying? I
Yeah,
don't
for sure.
believe in failure. And every fall teaches us something.
Sure.
If you choose to take the learning with you. So you can get bogged down in this idea of, "Oh, I messed up. Oh, I failed. Oh, right?" Or you can go, "Okay, what did I learn?" And one of the ones that I love to, one of the tools that I love to share with people is, if you are starting to beat up on yourself, then perceive that someone you love is coming to you with precisely the same problem or precisely the same circumstance. They've made a mistake. Whatever it is, right? They've done exactly the same thing that you just did. So the question is, would you beat them up the way that you are beating yourself up? Would you speak to them the way you are speaking to yourself?
That's a good one.
Mm.
I love it. So, Jackie, let's just wrap it up since we're running out of time. I love talking to you.
Me too.
So, for our viewers, what is one small thing they can do today to start their own renewal process?
Well, one thing that they can do today, how about we just get excited? What if we
I
just
love
get
it.
excited about possibilities? You know, look around you, and I mean it's still very white where I live, but I also know that there's stuff is going to start growing soon, right? Get
For
excited.
sure. Awesome. So, Jackie, thank you so much for joining us. Where can the viewers find you?
Oh, on the screen there. So JackieMott.com is my website. You can find me on Facebook, Jackie Mott Mindset and Empowerment Expert, or you can email me at jackie@jackiemott.com. And that QR code has a link to go right to my calendar to book a call.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jackie. I love having you here.
Oh, thank you, Minna.
So next week, we are thrilled to have Kelly and Terry, the fear coaches, with us. So join us every Tuesday at 7 p.m. CST for more tips to up-level every aspect of your life. If you miss an episode, you can always catch up on our YouTube channel, Chronic Health Collective, or on e360tv.com in the Vitality TV network. Until next time, stay healthy, stay inspired, and as always, live your chronically healthy life. I'll see you next week. Thank you, Jackie.
Bye-bye.